I was
Right?
an officer, but I graduated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there you go. It counts.
So, okay, let's get started. So, today's session is on virtualization with VirtualBox. So, I'll go through a little bit the introduction of virtualization and then the basics of virtualization and then what we can do with VirtualBox with the introductory part, creating a virtual machine, communicating through virtual machines and taking backup and disaster recovery and all those stuff. So in between, if anybody has any questions, you can just come up with anything that you don't understand. So let's go ahead with the next slide. So, okay, let me share the screen. Okay, so this is the content today. So I'll just try to go through it a little quickly because we need to wrap it up within an hour. So I don't know, I have not given a demo to it. So we'll see why virtualization has come into play. Then types of virtualization, terminologies, features of the VirtualBox stuff, supported operating system, running a virtual machine using VM groups, snapshots, configuration, cloning, import-export virtual machine, and how we shared folder between a host machine and guest machine. So we'll go
Zaid,
through.
you haven't shared your screen yet.
I'm sorry.
We can see your screen.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Can you guys see now? Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, it is good. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we'll go through all these topics. That's what it is. So I just wanted this part to be interactive. So let's go ahead with the first part. Like I just want to ask to everyone why we require virtualization. If anybody can want to speak something.
Efficiency?
Efficiency, yes. Then safety, I would say yes. Then
For if you want to have multiple users on a system.
okay, that's partly true. Okay. All right, so let's talk about it. So virtualization came into play when researchers or people in the industry felt that when a lot of machines are taking a lot of power, but the resources are underutilized. So whenever you power up a machine, you see your processor is only 2% utilized and you have a RAM of 8 GB machine and your usage is only 4 GB. So that's a concept where it came to where resources could be utilized more efficiently with the terms of power, memory, storage, network, compute. So all these things together. So yeah, so running multiple operating systems simultaneously, that's one of the advantages why virtualization is used. So whenever we install a VirtualBox in our machine, we can run Linux, Solaris, or any Windows machines. Easier software installation. So a lot of times when if you want to install something in UNT domain, you are not allowed to install anything unless UNT IT department permits you. So in the VirtualBox, you have all the control of it and you don't need to worry about all of them. So you can easily install the software without any permission problems. Testing and disaster recovery. So any kind of development work or research work that you want to do without hampering your own machine, you can just take the backup of that virtual machine or maybe restore it somewhere else and restart your whole research. So that will have a greater flexibility in terms of the control and portability of the whole thing. And then the infrastructure consolidation, where we say about the resource efficiency like the power, space, and then the storage, compute, and memory utilization. So earlier what used to happen is that when I used to work in 2010, I used to see like, I mean, 2010, the virtualization was kind of new that time, but before that, every server was utilized for a single website. So those kind of services used to happen. So now what happens is that we have a single physical hardware and we have multiple virtual machines set up with multiple applications running in the same physical machine. So we are saving space, we are saving power, we are saving RAM usage, computing, multiple compute cost, and the network utilization. So these are the reasons why virtualization has come into play. So the types of compute virtualization. So virtualization are of many types. Like you can have a network virtualization, you can have a storage virtualization, then a compute virtualization, application virtualization, and a lot of stuff. So, but today we are going to speak only about compute virtualization, where we are trying to speak about two types of virtualization. One is desktop virtualization and one is server virtualization. So in desktop virtualization, what we do is as we have machine, let it be a Windows or a Linux machine, and then we install softwares like VirtualBox or VMware Workstation, or maybe Citrix, Zen desktop kind of workstation softwares, which has the capability of installing a hypervisor between your own host machine and giving a platform to install a new machine. So when this virtual box is installed, you get the flavor of a complete new machine, which you get normally from the host machine, like accessing the BIOS, changing the settings of memory and all those stuff. So that's called the desktop virtualization. When we go to server virtualization, this is kind of at the industry level. So we see that we have high-end servers with high storage capacity, then memory capacity, and then a lot of space and compute power, where we install Windows servers, Linux servers, or maybe some other application servers that has heavy loads of kind of compute and storage and networking requirement. So at that level, we used server virtualization. So there are a lot of platforms which companies which use server virtualization, but two of the most known as are VMware ESX and Microsoft Hyper-V. Just give me a moment, I just need to drink water. Okay. So so there are other platforms as well, but this is what we use, VMware ESX and Microsoft Hyper-V. So let's go ahead. So today we are going to talk about VirtualBox desktop virtualization. So just a few terms before we start to understand or maybe implement VirtualBox. So host operating system is the host OS. So this is the operating system which you are using on your machine and on which VirtualBox can be installed. And there is a guest operating system, that is guest OS. So these are the virtual machines you will be installing on the VirtualBox machine. And then there's the virtual machine, which is just, all of you know that the virtual machine will be created inside a VirtualBox, and then we can start the machine and do all our required steps or tasks. Then there's a guest edition. So guest edition is a software from VirtualBox, Oracle VirtualBox, which allows enhanced services like sharing folders and then increasing or decreasing the screen resolution and many other features. So this is one of the ISO available. I'm going to show you how it's going to be available in the VirtualBox demo.
Wait, what was the difference between Guest OS and the VM? How do they work?
So guest OS and VM are two different terms, but mean the same thing. I'm getting
Okay.
Okay, so sorry. So so they're the two same term, but we interchangeably use it. That's it. That's the main difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So these are the features. So it's like talking about the characteristics what VirtualBox has. So it's portable. That means we can export the VM and save it somewhere, carry it in a USB and import it in some other VirtualBox software in a different machine. Then we can create VM groups where we can make clustering kind of thing. Remote machine display, one of the features. And then I'm sorry about that typo, creator hardware support. Guest multiprocessing, USB device support, hardware compatibility, and then we have ACPI support. Like it's kind of a hard power off signal, like advanced configuration power interface, just power off the device. Multi-screen resolution, built-in iSCSI support, and PXE network boot. So can anyone tell me what's built-in iSCSI support? I mean, without Googling. Okay, so integrated iSCSI support is like small computer systems interface. So if you have heard about RAID systems, like we are trying to have a redundant array of independent devices where we make a group of hard disk together and then try to make redundant storage where if a storage disk fails, then another storage comes up live and have your backup stuff. So this iSCSI is a medium of connection at the industry server level hardware platform where this has been utilized. So VirtualBox supports RAID kind of configuration inside its architecture. That's the main thing. Then we have PXE network boot, pre-boot execution environment. I don't know if you have heard about it, but it's one of the famous thing. Like if you want the machine to be started without having an OS and deploy it from a server or a central location. So it was quite famous. It's yet famous. So it's mainly used in training centers or labs where a new virtual machine is deployed from a remote place without having an operating system in the remote machine. Okay, then we have the guest edition like shared folders, seamless windows, 3D virtualization. So all these stuffs you will be getting from it. So supported operating systems. So almost all the operating systems are supported in VirtualBox, Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and Oracle Solaris. So this slide will be shared in the meeting slide channel in Discord. So you guys can get access to the link and see like what are the supported virtual machines or operating systems in it. Okay, so let's go ahead with creating a virtual machine. Any questions so far?
Yeah, I came a little late. I don't know if you covered this already, but is there a reason that you chose VirtualBox? Is it just because it can be installed on everything, or is there a specific reason over other VM?
Well, okay. So last week we had a meeting with a different topic. So one of the students came up with the request that we need to have a session on VirtualBox. So it's just that's it.
No. I mean like, okay, so VirtualBox specifically, not just VMs.
I mean, it's just that we took VirtualBox as an example to show virtualization. So I could do this even in VMware Workstation. So
okay, I didn't know if there were like benefits, if there was a specific reason, or if it was just you just happen to have it.
So it's like VirtualBox is created by Oracle, and Workstation VMware is by VMware. So both have their own virtualization platform. So some believe VMware is better as an interface. Some believe VirtualBox is better as kind of usability. So people have their own say. It's nothing that I like both. So I don't have any problem using both of them.
Okay, cool. I was just curious. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so let's go ahead and see how we create. Okay.
Sorry, may I interrupt? May I ask a question?
Yes, Dr.
So you mentioned you work with both, yeah?
Yeah.
Can you tell us some, from your experience, which is better for which? Or you were doing something and some things worked well with VMware and some worked well with VirtualBox. Can you share? Or you didn't do something very deep?
Well, I did deeper things. So VMware has a greater flexibility than VirtualBox because the last time when I was using GNS3, like the graphical network simulator, it was having a greater flexibility and it worked fine in VMware than VirtualBox because VirtualBox, I could not make it work. Maybe the knowledge is less or maybe the version mismatch or whatever, but it worked better and VMware has more forum replying questions or maybe having solutions, bug fixes than VirtualBox. So of my experience, I felt VMware has a greater flexibility than VirtualBox because I worked with VMware more than VirtualBox. So
okay.
Yeah, and so, in the virtualization platform, why I like VMware is that I've used VMware ESX, which is hardware server virtualization. I already have a ESX in my lab, and I have been using VMware since long. So VirtualBox is like I have been using very late, like for last 4 or 5 years maybe. So yeah, that's the thing. Yes, Dr. Morozov.
Oh, no, no, thanks. Yeah. So the presentation about GNS3,
Yes.
that one, that was actually, you made it work with VMware, right? Because I
Yeah.
thought you were doing it with VirtualBox. So
Yes, yes.
I confused. Okay, so that was actually VMware. Okay.
So what happened is that in the previous session, I tried to connect outside world, like the public network, with GNS3, which I could not make it work with VirtualBox. I tried to go through some kind of block, but it was not helpful for me. Maybe I need more time for that. But it worked with VMware. So,
Okay.
that's my experience.
Understood. Thanks.
All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can implement something in VirtualBox. Okay. So we have, we want to implement a Ubuntu machine where I have already downloaded Ubuntu ISO. It's a ISO file. So, okay. So let's create, we go to new, and then we say Ubuntu 20. And then we store it in, this is a folder where we can restore it. And then we say it's Linux and it's a 64-bit. We can go to expert mode. Let's see what's there in expert mode. Okay. So in the expert mode, we can set the memory of whatever the machine wants. And we can create a virtual hard disk now, which we will require it anyway. So let's go back and, okay. So Ubuntu 20. Let's keep it like this. Okay, next. We keep it 2 GB RAM. Then we create a virtual hard disk create. And then we can keep any of the image formats like VirtualBox disk image, virtual hard disk, or virtual machine disk, VMDK. So I believe I used a VMDK both with VMware and VirtualBox, but VDI mostly work with VirtualBox proprietary machines. So this is okay if we do it this way. Okay. Then there are two options. One is a dynamically allocated disk, and one is a fixed size. When we do a dynamically allocated option, we get to dynamically increase the size of the storage. So it's not like we took 10 GB, so 10 GB will be allocated at a time. So if OS requires for installation only 4 GB of space, so initially only 4 GB is allocated, though we select 10 GB. So it's kind of, what to say, I don't know the term, I just forgot the term. So it's like dynamically expanding the storage. So let's say we want 10 GB of space, and this VDI file is stored in user side, VirtualBox, and Ubuntu 20. So if you want to look at it. So we just created a VM, and if we start it, it will take time for installation. So I'm just going to show that it's not showing any error or something. Oh, one more thing, before I go to start. Okay, so, okay. So if we go to settings here, we can see there are options in the network that has all this NAT, bridge adapter, internal network, host only adapter, and all those stuff. So out of them, what I have used is, one is the NAT. I guess if you guys know what a NAT is, anybody wants to share their thing? What is a NAT? Okay, so it's a network address translation. So we know that we are having two types of IP addresses when we try to communicate with the external world. One is a public IP address and the private IP addresses. So public IP addresses are those which we need to purchase, and private IP addresses are those which are freely available and we can use in any internal network. So whenever we want to go from a private network to a public network, we need to do a NAT. So that's what the NAT is here, that we are performing a network address translation. this is the bridge adapter. So if we use a bridge adapter, we will get an IP address of the same subnet which the host is already in. So if you see my IP address is like CMD. So my IP address is 10.120.60.69. So this is the IP address allocated to the lab in a Discovery Park lab. So I will get the IP of the same series if we use a bridge mode adapter, or else if we use a NAT adapter, then we'll get an internal NAT IP defined by VirtualBox itself. So that's the difference. Then we have internal network. So it's kind of internally used between VirtualBox virtual machines. So if you just want to communicate between the virtual machines in a VirtualBox, then you select internal network. Then there is a host-only adapter. So to define host-only adapter, I want you to show you. Sorry. So machine. Okay. So host-only adapter is an option to connect your virtual machine with your host machine, or guest machine with the host machine. So these are the VirtualBox host Ethernet adapters which are defined inside VirtualBox, and they are created, if you define it here, they're created inside the host machine. So I want to show you where exactly they are. So if I want to show Ethernet and chain adapter options. So you can see here, VirtualBox host only, number 2. So these two adapters are already installed here. So this is the way you get to connect virtual machine to your host machine. Did you guys get that?
What would
Please repeat it again.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting.
So, oh, no problem. So if you want to communicate between a virtual machine and your host machine, you can communicate via host-only adapter, which is in the network in this host-only adapter. So if you select host-only adapter, you will get two options. One is host-only Ethernet adapter 2 and VirtualBox host-only Ethernet adapter. How these things are coming into play is, if you see here, file preferences, file host network manager, you can see that we can create Ethernet adapters inside VirtualBox that can be created in the host machine itself. So if you see VirtualBox host only Ethernet adapter 1 and 2, and if you come and see here, they are the same thing which are displayed in the host machine as well. So this one is saying that its IP should be in the range of 192.168.236.1. So if you go ahead and see the IP address of this, it should be in the same range. So if we see, I'm sorry, if we just see status, details. So this is the IP address of that adapter.
Okay.
So if you see here, it's again 131. So if you see the status and details, so it's 131. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So
question, sorry. Is there a reason that you would want to connect between your VM and your host? Are there any security concerns with that?
Well, sometimes it's like if you want to copy something and paste it to your virtual machine, it's really difficult to copy and just paste it this way.
Right.
So if there's a way that you can connect from your host machine to a guest machine and share the files between them, that's one of the options that you need to do. You can do it like that. So that's just the feature.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah. So I want to show one more thing is that when we have installed, we didn't install it yet. We just created the virtual machine. One thing missing here is that we need to select the storage where we need to insert the ISO file. So if you go here, this is empty. You need to select the ISO file from here. So let's say choose virtual optical disk. Okay. I need to add a disk here from downloads, which I've already downloaded the Ubuntu 20.4. So I am selecting this. So it's here now, 2.6 GB. I need to choose it. Okay, now I have the Ubuntu ISO here, and then I'll go ahead and just start the machine and go through the installation of Ubuntu machine. So basically the installation will take 20 to 30 minutes, but we are not going to waste our time in that. So we'll do something on the existing virtual machines, which is already there. So yeah, I hope that's okay with all. Okay, so I'm going to close this now for now. Okay, I'm going to see what's there in my presentation next. So we created the virtual machine, and then now we have the snapshot creation. So let me go ahead and show you the snapshot creation and all those stuff. So we have a machine called Ubuntu Test September 20.
Sorry for interrupting. Sorry.
Yes.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, sorry. So what you showed to us before is that you, as a disk, you chose basically the image of the CD with Ubuntu
Installation.
20 distribution, right? So
Yes,
it would
yes.
just go ahead and install, and I would just do the installation as if it was on my, well, on my host machine, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is like in earlier time when we used to have a DVD. I mean, we have it now as well.
Yeah, right,
DVD,
right.
DVD.
Just
So
kids don't know what's that. Yes.
so it's like you're inserting a CD of ISO file, and then you get the installation media and you're installing it. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. Okay, thanks. That's
Okay.
understood. Thanks.
So let's go ahead and see the snapshot part. So if I open this and I want to open the Ubuntu Test September 20, I guess. What's that? We get an error. Okay, no problem. So just give me 1 second. Yeah, I am trying to load the machine. I can't. Okay. I can't see the snapshots. Okay. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was going to just look at the snapshots of this. So I have already created 2 snapshots of Ubuntu Test September 20. So if you see that I have created a snapshot at 12:52 today with the current state, and then I made some changes to the VM and then created a new snapshot, which is at 12:54. So we are going to do the same thing. So we are going to just start it now for just to show it. And I'm going to start the current state, start. So in the meantime, if you guys have any question when this Ubuntu is getting started, you can just shoot.
So you said whenever you were creating the VDI for the VirtualBox, what was that exactly? Was that the storage space, the dynamic storage space, or is that something different?
So that is kind of a disk. So it's a hard disk for the VM. So we have hard disk for our physical machines, like we buy a HDD drive. So that's kind of a VDI file, which has the hard disk drive as a physical drive inside a virtual machine as a software VDI file. That's it.
Okay, that makes sense. And then use the ISO as an installer to
Install it.
it.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. And the last option, the VMDK.
All those are different formats of it, different
Right.
formats. So it's like they have VMDK format, VDI format, which are interchangeable, which can interchangeably used with VMware or any other virtualization software. So it's
Okay.
kind of gives you to the flexibility of it.
That's good to know. Cool.
Yeah. So okay. So we have this snapshot taken at November 12, 1252. So we can just create a new file. Okay, let me show first some of the changes that I can make to show you how the IP address changes here. So system tools. So if you see that we are having a bridge mode adapter, how did I understand? Because it's the same series as how this machine has the network IP. So if you see that I have a network IP of 10.120.60.69, and this machine is having 10.120.60.186, and it also has internet. So now if I want to have a NAT network and this IP will be untraceable, so I'll just go here, settings, and then network, then I can just change it to NAT, okay, and I can just restart the sudo. See. So you can see that the IP has already changed. So that's what you do in the NAT. So you do have yet access to the external world, but the external world cannot trace you because you are under network address translation. So that's the one thing. Then we have another option of changing the NAT is that settings, network. Then we have a NAT host only adapter. So that can make us connect to any of the adapters here. I don't know if it gets a DHCP IP or no. Let's go and try. So we have selected the first one, okay. And then I'll go ahead and see if I have a change. Okay, so this IP is to be manually changed going through ETC network interfaces. So it doesn't have a DHCP. So if it has DHCP, then it will get an IP address and then we can communicate with the host. So even though if it is not connected to a host adapter, if we have a bridge adapter, then too we can connect to the host machine. So it is just a feature. Okay, so let's go ahead with the any questions in the network part? Okay, if not, then we'll go ahead with the snapshot part. So okay, so let's go ahead and create some files here. Say create new folder, test1, then create new folder, test2. I create some files here, say create new file, test1 to 3. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a snapshot. Okay, machine, take a snapshot, and then we can say it's a snapshot 3, which we took at 18:06 p.m. 18:06, that means 6 p.m. And then the today's date is like 18 November 2020. So we can say the creation of some files. Okay. So you can see that the state has changed and we are in a new state. So the advantage of this is that either you can go back to the first snapshot where you did not do any changes, or you can go to the current state where you already made the changes. So the flexibility is like if you have done any mistake in your project and you want to go back to the previous stage where there was the starting stage of your project, then you can just go back to snapshot 1. So that's the advantage of snapshots. So let's go ahead and I can just shut it down or restart if you want to see it, or we can just go to the next explanation. Okay, so what do we have next? Any questions here? No questions. Okay, so then we have virtual machine configuration. So let's go ahead and see. If you just select the machine and then go to settings, let's go to a setting of machine which is powered off, because in a fly we cannot just change the configuration. So if you go to general, you can change the name of the system and all those stuff, and VirtualBox settings. Again, in the system, you can change the RAM or whatever things are connected here. There are a lot of other options which are, some are known and some are not known to me. So these are like when I use the VirtualBox, I didn't have any kind of impact with this setting. So these are just default settings. And then you can see the storage part where this is your hard disk, which was created. It's created in a VMDK format while this was installed. And then we have the VBox Guest Edition ISO. So this VBox Guest Edition ISO is the same thing which I was talking about some time back, that provides you with better screen resolution and a shared folder facilities. We are going to see the shared folder facilities after adding a new machine. I have a Windows 7 thing where I'm going to show you that. And we're going to install VBox Guest Edition ISO 2. Okay, then the network part and all the stuff. Okay. So next, I would just actually want to show you adding a machine. This was like creation of a machine, but now I'm going to show adding an existing machine. Okay. Okay. So I had to switch it off because my memory will run over because if I turn on multiple machines. Okay. So let's go ahead and add a machine. Add. So I have a machine here in the VM, in the Win7. So this is one of the machines which were taken from this website. Let's see. Okay. I have it. Okay, so actually I don't have it now. Maybe I can just open it, csc.unt.edu. So this is accessible to all, I think, UNT students, I guess. If you have taken computer security course, you can just have it. So I took the VirtualBox VDI file and VBox file from here. So I mainly downloaded Win7 VDI file and Win7 VBox file. And after that, I got into, if I go here, so these are the files which I have already. So now if I want to add a machine here. So I just showed you that, like machine add, and then we have Win7 folder, Win7 open. And then we just start the machine. Okay. So this is how we add a machine. So currently the settings of network is bridge adapter. That means it will get an IP address of the same subnet as the host machine. So let's go ahead. Yeah, you guys need to give me some time before it starts, and I can then show you a shared folder. So next thing what I'm going to show is how to share a folder between the host machine and a guest machine. So I guess if it is making sense, why do we need to share a folder between a host machine and a guest machine? Anybody wants to answer?
Other than like sharing files, or like
Yeah.
why, what kind of file would you need to share?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the storage. So the way how we access the storage of UNT, like we have some kind of space in the UNT OneDrive or something like that, where we can just rely on, okay, that storage is secure. Maybe we can just store it and it will not get wiped off of something. So similarly, we just need to use some shared folder in the host machine. Even if the VirtualBox does not exist, or virtual machine does not exist, that shared folder will give you access to the files you have saved. So it's just kind of that. So I'm going to go ahead with, there are other stuff. Okay.
If I can make a comment, for
Yeah.
example, if you would like to share a lab manual for computer security course lab, then of course you can just email it to yourself, and that's what people do, I guess. Just open the webmail in the guest OS. But an alternative is just to do that, share the file, and then you don't need to open anything if you can do it.
Okay, I guess there is some problem with it now. I made some, let me see if, I'm sorry. Okay, so I was just testing one of the parts here. So I just happened to change the VBox file to show a different location, which we had issues in computer security. So I thought I'll just show you this. So this is the location where the VDI file format is stored. So here it shows that the name is changed. So we need to have a proper name for the VDI file, which is Win7 here. So that's why I was getting an error. So let me just try changing it and see if the error is solved. Normally, if you take the backup of it, it will not have any impact. But if you want to have a new VDI file and run an old VBox file, then you might have to change the location to the same VDI file name. So I guess this is little advanced stuff. So just hear it for now. I just cannot say anything. So let's go ahead and see if it solves the purpose or not. Let's try.
Yeah, I ran into a lot of problems with the VBox or VM boxes from the CSC machine or the website download because apparently I have a new AMD processor and they changed some stuff how commands are executed or something like that, and so a lot of them just don't work.
Okay.
So luckily, I have a laptop that I can use, but I spent a couple hours trying to figure out why my kernel was not working at all. And
okay. Yeah, there are some compatibility issues sometimes. Then you have to look up the forums if someone has solved it. Then sometimes the bug and all the stuff. So yeah.
I'm not sure if there's a solution to it since they're just older files with newer hardware. So.
All right. So let's create. So the purpose of this, what I'm trying to show is that I want to just share a folder. I mean, create a folder in the host machine and have it accessed in the virtual machine or the guest OS. So let's go ahead and okay. Let's go ahead and create one folder like Win7 share or something, and then create some file here, maybe text file, text. Yes, okay, I just saved it. Save. Okay. So the way to share a folder between a host and a virtual machine is that we go to devices here, and then we click on shared folder settings, and then okay, there is already an existing folder which we want to delete it. I just want to show you a new one. So I'll click plus, then folder path, I'll go to other, and then select this folder, which is in desktop, Win7 share, select folder, and I'll do auto mount and make it permanent. Okay, so, okay, fine. Now we should be able to see Win7 share inside the Windows machine. So where we'll go to the network portion and VBox server. And then we have the WinShare and we have the file. Okay. So one thing to make sure is that before we do sharing of this folder, we need to install VBox Guest Edition. I guess VBox Guest Edition is already installed here. So I'm going to show you how to install it at the moment. So let's go to machine settings, and then we go to storage. Okay. The Guest Edition is already stored here. How we select it? We go here and then just select Guest Edition ISO. This comes with VirtualBox itself, and you don't need to download it separately. That's what I believe. So you can just select it and then okay. how you install it. Now, if you go to Files and Computer, you will see a VirtualBox Guest Edition ISO here. Just double click it, and then you will have a pop-up with the installation of that, and your VirtualBox Guest Edition will be installed. So yeah, so since it's installed, it's not showing anything. So that's the first step you need to do before you have a shared folder. And then you can just create a folder here and then do the steps which I have shown, like shared folders and all those stuff. Okay, so it's again, okay, I'll just do it. Fine. Okay, so while this is going on, what else we need to do is that I need to show something. Okay, next is cloning a virtual machine. So why would we require to clone a virtual machine? Anyone?
If you want to distribute a specific, kind of like Kali Linux, actually. It comes with all these tools, and if you want to add tools and give it to someone else, you can clone it that way. Create, or if you're going to do something kind of sketchy and you're afraid that it's going to break your computer, cloning it would be a good idea.
Okay.
I guess snapshots would take care of that, though, wouldn't it?
Yes, snapshot would take care of it. Cloning we mainly do is because we want to have multiple machines having more compute and more memory and more storage power. So if you see, if we want to install a machine, it takes some time to install the whole thing, like 20 or 15 minutes maybe, or maybe 10 minutes. So, but I mean, if we clone it, we have the same settings, same software, and everything same, but a different machine. And then we can make 10 clones and combine it together to just serve to 100 millions of users to, you know, kind of a website or maybe some kind of a storage or something. So it gets used in that kind of a stuff.
Does whenever you say you clone the Windows 7 machine and it's part of the same network, I guess since when it's added, it's still given just a different IP address, but the user is still named the same on the machine since it's a clone.
I think you have the users as the same. Yes. So it will give different IP only if you generate a new Mac. So if you have the same Mac as the previous machine, then there will be conflict of the Mac, and then you may not get the IP address because that Mac has already get a DHCP IP from the DHCP server.
Right.
So it cannot request, or it can request, it cannot get any reply from the DHCP server. So it works that way. So I'll just close this at the moment, and I'll just show how to take a clone. So if I want to clone the machine, just right click the machine, clone it, and then you can say clone one or something, wherever you want to install it. And then MAC address policy, include only NAT network adapter MAC address. No, you would like to generate a new MAC address for all network adapters. And then if you want to keep the hardware UUID, keep these names. So you definitely don't want to keep the hardware UUID, because if you want to clone it and install it in the same virtual machine, you cannot have more than single UUID serving two virtual machines. You need to have a single UUID for a single virtual machine. So you can just go ahead and clone it this way. Just go ahead and make a full clone. A link clone will have some issues, so I don't have explanation for that now, but you need to look up in the virtual box forum or something. So if you clone it, okay, this will eventually go and clone the whole stuff. So I just don't want to show you the whole thing, but you can clone and do as what I just said. That's one thing. I'll just go ahead and stop it.
Actually, cloning is a great idea, because if you think of every time you buy a new laptop, and it's a nightmare. For me, it's a few days work full time to try to get all the apps and all this thing. I wish I would just get a copy of my previous laptop and be fine with that. You know, that's really an issue. So I was thinking how to solve it, and yeah, that would be a great option, I think.
Okay. All right, so I think I have some issues here. There's a great problem with my, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, you guys might have faced the same thing, so it's good to show you the same. I'll just see if I can do something. Yeah, the best thing I do is if nothing is responding, just go to Task Manager, click on that same process and end it. So it's a hard ending though. So I can't see VirtualBox. Okay, I have closed it. Okay, let's go to VirtualBox and task. A lot of things going on here. And task. Oh, it has. It's. Okay, it's not going to go away, looks like. Okay, so we just ended it. I don't know if it should not come back again. Just hope for the best. Okay. All right, so now we want to have a backup of the whole machine, like it's called export and import. So if we want to see, so we can export the whole appliance to a particular file and make it portable, carry it to a new machine and import it there and have the same setup. So you might say the difference between cloning and like, what is the difference between cloning and export import thing? So cloning makes a copy of the same thing, but stores it in your same machine. We just clone it. But exporting gives you the portability. When you export it, it exports to a OVF format, open virtualization format, which can be carried inside a USB stick or something, and then to a different machine, and then you can just import it and have the same virtual machine flavor. So let's go ahead and see how to export it first, and then we'll see the importation part. I cannot show the full thing because of the time limitation. So we just need to go ahead and see, right click, and then it is not here. Then we need to, wait a minute. I thought I had it. Machine. Wait a minute. Okay. Export virtual appliances. So we can select any format. Like okay, this is like if you have the compatibility of that same software in a different host machine. Like if you have the VirtualBox 5 here and then VirtualBox 6 in a different machine, then you might want to check the compatibility. But I'm going to just select one, and then no need to okay, include network, generate, include all the network. Okay, fine. Then next, okay, export. So you can export the machine this way. So it's just one of the ways that you could do it. And then you can import it to a different machine. So like in the host OS or something. So I'm going to stop this here. Let's see if it gets stopped here or no. And then similarly, we can just import a machine. So I just canceled it now for the moment. And then we can go ahead and import appliance. So we can select the appliance. So I have already an appliance called Automation VM, which is in open virtualization format archive. So I can just open this and then next, and just import it to my VirtualBox machine. So this is what the time will be. taken for it. So I'll go ahead and just cancel. I'm not going to show anything. So this is what I want to show you to all of you. Let's see what I have REST here. Okay, so we are done with import. Then, okay, the input preferences. Okay, sometimes what happens is that you don't know how to navigate between the host machine and the virtual machine. So if you go, virtual machine and host machine, yeah, guest OS and host OS. So if you see what are the key combinations, right key control and arrow button can give you access to select between your host machine or your guest machine. So if you are inside the guest machine, how will you come out of it? The button is control down arrow, or you can just see the controls here in the input and then go ahead with your options. So this comes from VirtualBox preferences. If you go to file preferences, you'll see this option. Okay, then I think, okay, these are the network settings. So one of the things which I did not show is that VirtualBox preferences, where you can create a NAT network and assign any IP that you want. So if you go here, let's say cancel file, host network manager. I'm sorry, not here. File, I think preferences. And then if you go network, so you can see that you can create as many networks you want. You can add it here, network 2, change the settings here, and then you can have a different set of IP like 10, 20, 20, 0, and support DHCP and all those stuff, and just make OK, and then you can have that. This thing can be assigned to any machines here. How? If you go here and select network and then select NAT network, and then you have a name here option, network, NAT network, and I think the changes are not applied here, so we can see only 2. So either network 1 or network NAT network 0 or whatever. So you can just select it like that and then go ahead and do your operation. That's what I want to show. That's all for now, I guess. Snapshot versions. I've shown you the shared folder things. Okay. So troubleshoot issues. I don't want to show it more because it's already 6:30. So 4 kinds of issues can happen. One is network connectivity. Check what kind of network adapter is to be used between your host machine and guest machine, or maybe between 2 guest machines. Then you might mess up with the storage, like you don't have the correct storage for that same guest machine you want to power up. So normally what happens is that when you create a VM, you don't usually input the ISO file. You might need to go ahead and change the ISO to show you the ISO media of installation. So you might have some issues there. And then you might encounter into slow processing speed. So if your machine is having 16 GB of RAM, and if you are utilizing already 4 to 5 GB of RAM, so you have to have some RAM buffer for your machine to run, and then you can create virtual machines and then allocate VMs, allocate the RAMs there. So if you have 4 machines with 2 GB each, you can use up 8 GB, but make sure that it does not overflow your RAM so that your machine does not become slow. So RAM is one of the parts where you want to have your pages loaded so that your machine is faster. Sometimes the machine can get slow due to disk space usage as well. So if you see here, if you see that performances, so whenever I hit an issue like that, I go here and check what are my performance scales. I see the disk space usage, like sometimes the disk is at 100%. That time my machine is very slow. Sometimes the memory gets up to here, it's become slow. Sometimes the CPU is very high, so the machine behaves a little slow. So you need to back and forth check whatever the problems you have and try to resolve it as how you can just stop it. So you have the additional resources here in the slide, in the references, like you can go to VirtualBox forums, the bug tracker, and which are also available from here in the help mode website, bug tracker and forums. You can just go there. And that's it for today. Questions?
Tell us more. 1 more hour.
1 more hour. Not possible. So I wish I could show more. I mean, I don't have anything ready for ESX. I mean, I do have a ESX installation here if you guys want to just see. So it's the industry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, advanced. So I have a VMware ESX. Just I installed it some days back, which I'm going to do some test on. I mean, we can use it for cybersecurity cloud sometimes. Karan, if you are with me. So, I mean, it's a big interface where you have 4 CPU, 32 GB of RAM and all the stuff. And I have one virtual machine working here, which is, I just installed Kali, and then I can just access the console. And yeah, so that's what I have at the moment. So
Is it slowing down substantially when you work with it over the network?
I'm sorry, what?
I mean, like the VM is on the server side, right? So now you just have it in the browser window, right? It or what? How does it work?
This this is a complete server and website. I mean the console.
Yes.
So it's at
yeah,
the
right.
server.
So,
It's in the server. This is not VirtualBox or anything. This is in the server. This is a ESX.
Yeah. So, but the server is not on your current on the host, right? So
No,
you
it's
only
not on the
connect
host.
to that server. Yeah, right. So is it slow if you connect to it over the internet? So if you are on the local network, it's probably fast, right?
Yes.
Like on local Ethernet, it's fast. How about if you connect from home to that thing? Is that slow?
So from home, it will depend on what speed you have. So suppose when you, so these kind of services are given by the cloud environment. So if you go to AWS service or maybe some other VMware or Microsoft, they have a dedicated bandwidth for you. So if your service provider at your end, at your home, do not have adequate bandwidth, which may have disturbances in your connection, then it's a problem. But from the service end of AWS, they ensure that they give you a proper bandwidth, like to do a smooth operation. So mostly my experience is that when I used AWS VM, it did not slow up at all. So it's like a smooth. So it should be smooth.
But this one now, is it on UNT machine or in AWS, the one that you're showing?
It's in the lab. It's in my lab.
It's in your lab. Oh, okay, right. I got it. Yeah, okay. And when you connect to it from home, the console is not slow.
Console is not slow. It depends on UNT bandwidth.
Right,
So sometimes what happens?
And your home internet, but suppose that they are okay.
Yeah,
then it works.
Yes. So this will not slow at all. It is purely on our bandwidth of UNT bandwidth and my home bandwidth. Yeah, that's the thing.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I will let other.
No problem. Any questions? All right. So if there are no questions, then
I have a question.
Okay.
May I ask? Sorry.
Yes, sure.
Sorry about that. Yes. My experience with, so just to share, my experience with VirtualBox is that sometimes you run or guest OS in it and it's kind of getting slow. So just increasing the RAM that you allow for VirtualBox usually solves the problem. You cannot give it too much, but if you, I don't know, if you allocate like half of your available RAM for the VirtualBox, then it's normally pretty fast. Actually, 2 gig usually does the job. You know, do 4 if you have 8, and then it's going to be pretty fast. That's my. Yeah. And another question. Sorry. Say, did you have any issues with? So we discussed that in chat. There were issues with running VirtualBox on AMD, you know, specifically AMD Ryzen, I don't know what's the name. Yeah, Ryzen 5. So did you hear about it? So anything about it?
Well, yeah,
So some.
I haven't been to AMD much, so.
Right. So me neither. I don't even know how to pronounce the name. You see, so yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's more of a thing to where, since it's more of an AMD architecture thing, since I used to be or since I used to have an AMD Ryzen 5 2600, and with the Zen architecture that they introduced, virtualization had always been finicky, and that it's something that the software updates over time will try to implement fixes for.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, in the chat, I see a lot of messages. So if I have not answered anything, you guys can just speak again if there is anything I have to answer, if I know something. Any questions? If not, then we can end. Karen, you want to say something, or other officers want to say something?
Syed, could you stick around for like 2 minutes afterwards? Just general announcements. Hope everybody's being safe. If you go on Try Hack Me, they're doing this 25 days of hacking to where you can earn prizes like money that you can put towards certain certifications. So it also is a lot of just holding your hands, walk through hacking if you are interested. I'll debate about whether or not we're going to have a meeting next week, as it's literally will be the day before Thanksgiving and technically the last day of allowed in-person classes. So depending on whether or not people want one or not, we will decide upon that. And that's all the general announcements that I have off the top of my head.
So, all right. So I think let's end the meeting. And are we joining on Discord?
Whichever you want, and don't forget to stop and save the recording so that we can upload it to the YouTube.